right, let's do a review of last night's Springfield City Council meeting. It is the Council Corral. I've been doing a review of the council meetings here in Springfield for, 12, 13 years or so. And it's interesting to see some of the same issues pop up time and again, but obviously important issues, not just for those who live in the city of Springfield, but those who shop in the city of Springfield. You spend your tax-paying dollars in the city of Springfield. And around the area in Sangamon County and beyond, tourists and those who come down for veto session or for just regular legislative session, a buzz of activity here in the capital city. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Last night, they had a variety of presentations that were focused on the sporting community here in Springfield, including a variety of sports teams like the area golf teams.
So we also want to invite up.
Were honored last night with the boys team for, I believe, Sacred Heart Griffin there, and Mayor Misty Busher, recognizing them, and even bringing up the girls golf team to recognize them as well. So that was part of last night, but you did have also a special city council meeting where they dealt with something we talked about last week, and that was health insurance for city employees. Now, city employees were a major focus of last night, especially when it comes to residency. We'll touch on that in a moment, but here's a bit of the conversation that was had just before they held a special city council meeting to pass new health care benefits for city employees. Here's Springfield Alderman Chuck Redpath.
That we had with this ordinance to begin with was we were trying to help our retirees as best we possibly could. With the presentation that we had last week from Mike Allwell, he was able to give us a pretty good explanation of how that proposal is going to work. It's important that we follow through with the education of our retired employees to try to help them understand that trying to go to the next level to the high deductible bid is probably the best opportunity to lower their rates. We're not going to let this thing lay. We're going to do our best to work with HR and the mayor's office and the city council to try to make it better in the future. But for right now, this is the best that we can offer, and I ask the city council for their support.
Dan, they went ahead and they voted for that. A couple of different ordinances dealing with health insurance, and that passed. And they closed out the special city council meeting, and then they went into the committee of the whole. And there you had Alderwoman Lakeisha Purchase motion for one measure to be withdrawn. It dealt with landlords, and there was a conversation about creating a special committee of sorts to deal with notifying landlords of problem properties, and you have alder people throwing their hat in the ring to take part in that. So a lot of conversation there. But something that came up as well is an ordinance dealing with residency. All right, and this is an issue that's been pretty hot in Springfield, and let's go ahead and hear how that played out.
On the enforcement of residency requirement, Chapter 36, Section 36.05 of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances.
Move for debate.
Second.
Been properly moved and second to send this ordinance on to debate. Any discussion? Yeah, we had someone here to sign up, Mr. Clerk, to speak to this issue.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Joe McMiniman.
Alderman McMiniman.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's been 6 months. I got to say, it's been wonderful to be without the phone calls, text messages, emails, and so forth, and preparing for Tuesday night meetings. Congratulations to the new alderpersons and to all the returning alderpersons. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss residency. It's a very important issue. It deserves careful attention.
And Alderman McMiniman was an advocate for requiring city employees to live within the city. And he gave some background as to why this is important to him and why there was a referendum recently to change the residency requirements.
Essentially, from 1976 to 2000, we became an entirely residential city for our employees. By the year 2000, we had about 1,700 employees, and they all lived within the city limits, all 1,700 of them. And at that time, the city council then passed a ordinance to do away with residency. And at the time, most thought that it would be of little consequence. that's not the way it turned out. So in year 2000, we've got 1,700 employees living within our city limits. Within 4 years, 20% of our employees did not live within the city limits by 2004. By 2009, 30% of our city employees did not live within our city limits. And at that point in time, some of the aldermen began raising concerns. And the concern was, all that, we're sending our wealth outside of the city to be spent outside of our city. And we're losing some middle-class backbone. We're losing some pillars of the community, that type of concern.
Clearly, that's something that McMiniman has talked about for years, even before he was elected. 13 years ago, did his 3 terms that there's term limits in Springfield City Council, did his 3 terms, and now that he's out of the council and you got a new mayor in, they're looking at possibly having a moratorium of sorts on the residency requirement. Well, here's some of the rationale behind that, but more from McMiniman talking about why he thinks this is important to get right.
29,000 of our residents said, yes, let's have a residency requirement. 29,000. The ward with the highest yes vote was Ward 10. 4,000 in Ward 10 said, yes, let's have a residency requirement. The percentage of yes overall was 59% across the whole city.
And that's from a referendum that happened over a decade ago. It was a non-binding referendum, but it was enough for the previous mayor to enact a residency requirement. More from McMiniman.
And if you can't make appropriate arrangements within 1 year, then the mayor and the city directors can exercise their discretion if there's an extreme hardship and give an additional 6 months to move in. So that's the way things stand now. I'm very concerned that this ordinance as written would open the barn door and we'd never be able to close it again like we did in 2012.
So if the moratorium's enacted, McMiniman's worried that it'll be difficult to end that moratorium because you'll have a lot of people moving outside of Springfield, still living in the county maybe, but living outside the city Springfield limits while still being employed by the city of Springfield. More from McMiniman.
So just for easy math, let's say our city payroll is $100 million. And 30% of our employees do not live within the city limits. They live in Chatham or Rochester, Pleasant Plains, or Decatur, who knows? I mean, they're spread out. So let's say 30% live outside of city limits. 30% of our payroll of, let's say, $100 million, it's higher than that, it's $30 million. So $30 million, what's the rule of thumb of, for every dollar you put into a local economy, how many times does it turn over? 7 times is the rule of thumb. So that $30 million goes outside our city limits and gets turned over. It turns over 3 times, let's say. That's $90 million of spending outside of our city limits. It has a very significant impact on our sales tax because that's spending that's taking place outside that does not generate sales tax for our city government expenses.
I think, though, many can argue, I don't live in Springfield, but last night I spent a whole bunch of money in Springfield. Picked up some pizzas for myself and some coworkers, got gas, went to a hardware store, picked up some things after work, all within the city of Springfield limits. Again, I don't live in Springfield. I live in South Sangamon County, so a lot of my tax dollars, though, going to sales taxes that the city of Springfield benefits from. So this conversation obviously coming back again, and it's an ordinance that would put a moratorium on. We'll cover this with the Council Corral, Bishop on air, but here's some of the discussion from last night. Expect a lot more. They're off next week, but you got the following week that they'll be back at it and taking this up for possible final passage. Here's Alderman Roy Williams, Jr.
I'll just say this is going on debate, and actually we got a couple of weeks instead of 1 week because we're not here next week. So, we got a minute before we bring this back up for final passage.
And you can imagine that's going to lead to a lot of internal conversations and even constituents reaching out to alderpeople sharing their thoughts. But Alderman Hanauer, he laid out some of the rationale as to why to put a moratorium on the residency requirements in Springfield.
We are losing linemen like crazy. We've got a large group that are retiring, that will be retiring, and when they get hired, they go through school, they got their choice. They can go to Ameren, where they can live wherever they want. All they got to do is when it's time to show up, they got to be on time, or if there's an emergency, they got to be there within a certain period of time. Here, you have to live in the city. This past year, from what I understand, we've had 25 housing starts, and that's with residency. 25. Think about that. 25 housing starts. Realtors, you hear all the time, there's not enough houses for people to buy. I understand, but one of the things that was brought up in the past was that somebody moves in, they're paying property tax. Every property in this city pays property tax unless they become delinquent. Everyone. So when I found out that we have we're going to have a hard time having linemen, and we know from the past storm how important they were. But they're going to be at other places where they don't have to. They're not confined to where they live.
And that's the same thing for police and for fire. Alderman Sean Gregory raising issue, saying that, he understands that. But there's people who do want to work in Springfield.
Something about people who work in the city of Springfield, live in the city of Springfield, taking pride in the city in which they're from. Not only that, but, community policing and on and on and on. The things that we have grown prideful for in our community. I think those things are very, very important, and we can't lose sight of those things. But as Alderman Williams said, I'm going to keep an open mind. I can't support a moratorium with no date or how long we're going to do it and things. However, I do think that, if it's linemen that we're having problems with and things, then we need to work on getting some people from Springfield. Electricity is a different game, man.
So obviously some continued conversations expected with the question of how are they going to attract certain people to work high pressure jobs, police, fire, line crews for the city's public utility. Even just public works. How are you going to get people who have certain wants and desires? Maybe they want to live on a farm somewhere. Maybe they want acreage. Maybe they don't want to live in a cookie cutter house. But they're a high caliber employee. How do you attract them? So Brad Carlson, Ward 7 Alderman, he sounded off on this issue as well.
I look at it from the fact that the city, we want to hire the best and the brightest. And I'm not sure pre-pandemic if we were getting those numbers. And let's go to the pandemic. Certainly since the pandemic, the way we do business, the way we shop, the way we go to work, everything has changed because of the pandemic. We still see people with masks. We Zoom. Restaurants are closed an extra day of the week. I was in a grocery store the other day. There are just long lines. And for whatever reason, people just are not coming back to work. I look at our police force. The number one job of government is protection of people. Our police force, as we know, and we've talked about up here, we are down 25 police officers from where we were 4 or 5 years ago. We don't even have a traffic enforcement division. And I think, and I've talked to police officers, they're concerned about getting the best talent in their ranks.
So obviously continued concerns about public safety and attracting the best people. Is it just a matter of maybe making the pay much higher to attract them? That's a good question. Or is it an effort of, hey, we got to see what works, save taxpayers some money, maybe open up the residency requirement, put a moratorium on it, and go that route. Alderman Larry Rockford, he sounded off on this as well.
Police officers, what do we pay our police officers in the city of Springfield compared to Bloomington or Champaign or or the St. Louis area, or where we recruit? Are we paying them enough? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something we need to look at and change those things to bring people in. I don't know. It's a tough decision. It's a tough thing that we got to decide on, and I hope we can have discussion within the next 2 weeks.
But obviously, the question overall is about property tax dollars, sales tax dollars, and requiring city employees to live within the city limits would require them to spend those tax dollars on property and sales within Springfield. Here's Alderman Redpath, who talked about just the stress on levels of policing in particular.
It absolutely is. And when we were in the storm we just had, we had to go outside and get some linemen. But there's also an urgency in the police department, the fire department, because we used to get 1,000 people come take those tests. Guess what? We're getting dozens now, and half of those aren't making it because they can't pass the test. Bottom line is that we got to open up the door to get some people to come in here and fill the gaps. As far as the argument goes about sales tax and people taking their money and then leaving here and going to shop somewhere else, that's malarkey.
And he addresses that a bit more.
We got empty spots all over. It's not just the utility and the police department. I know guys that are working at the power plant. Some guys are working 6 days a week, and I can tell, and you guys know them. So the bottom line is we got to help our workforce. We got to get the right people in here. This is a moratorium. If it doesn't work, we come back and cut it off. We don't want to do, the bottom line is we want people to come to Springfield. They're not building houses here. People are, if they leave here, there's still going to be property tax paid there unless the house is going to get torn down. That property tax isn't going anywhere. People buy it, the other people are going to buy the house. If the houses are being condemned and torn down, yeah, that's a different story. But right now, sales tax is supplementing our pensions because we don't make enough off our property tax to pay for the pensions.
So clearly questions about just city financing in general, and the pension issue is another show entirely. We'll have to talk about that. But just a few more comments here from the council meeting last night, Committee of the Whole. Again, it's the Council Corral. I'm Greg Bishop, and be sure to like and subscribe if you want more of this. Just follow me anywhere, Bishop on air. But Springfield Alderwoman Erin Conley wanted to make sure people know Springfield's a great place to live.
And I think we need to make sure that just because we're talking about this possible moratorium, people aren't going to all stop moving to Springfield to work here. This is a great place to live. We have decent housing prices. We've got easy access to quality health care. We've got good shopping here. I do most of my shopping is in the city of Springfield. I mean, I will go somewhere else for some things, usually when I'm on vacation. But, we need to be looking at the fact that this is a city that we are selling. Now, if it's difficult to get someone who lives in Pawnee or Auburn to move their house, but they're the best employee for us, are we doing our city and our residents a service by denying them the best applicable candidate? I don't know if that's right. I've got an open mind on this. We've got 2 weeks until we hear this issue in debate and before a full council meeting. And I fully expect people to reach out and talk to us about their thoughts, their questions, their concerns about this issue. But I really want to make sure that we, as elected representatives of this city, aren't talking about this as we're going to force you to be here. This is a pleasure to be in this city. We've got great parks, we've got strong schools, we can attract people, and I just want to make sure that we keep that level of dialogue going because this is a great city.
So we'll have more debate about this. No Council Corral next week. All right, they're not meeting next week. What is it, Halloween? By the way, somebody asked on a previous video if I'm going to be wearing a costume for Halloween. I don't know. I haven't even thought about that. I forgot to put on my rodeo shirt that Megan got me today for the Council Corral, but what are you going to do? I would have had to have done a costume change. But maybe I'll change costume whenever October 31st comes around. Then, again, no council meeting next week. That's all I got for you today. I got to get out of here and head out to the Illinois State Capitol. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Be sure to like and subscribe and, make it happen, all right? Enjoy everybody tuning in and letting me know how you're doing. And also all the suggestions out there for the program and some audio suggestions, working on that. Listen, I'm an engineer by hobby. I'm just putting all this together myself. So if you saw the setup, that I have here, there's a lot going on. But we'll clearly, do what we can to make it as beneficial for you as possible. Have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow, about 7:30. I think that's when we're doing the live thing. So have yourself a great Wednesday. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.